Great, let's unpack this. We are diving deep today, really into the engine room of effective content strategy. We're calling this one behind the experimentation process that drives ROI.
Hmm.
And this is all about tackling what I think is the single biggest problem that kills content effectiveness.
Yeah.
It's that huge gap between knowing what your data says
Mm-hmm.
and, actually doing something with it.
That gap is everywhere, and it's so costly. Most teams, they get really good at measurement.
Right.
They've got the sophisticated reports, the dashboards, all the models telling them, this guide closes deals or people bail on this email.
Yeah, the what? They know the what.
Exactly. But
Yeah.
then the insights just sit there. They go unused. And if you don't translate that into a systematic, rigorous approach to prove causation and actually drive improvement, well, your entire analytics function becomes this expensive vanity project.
I love that term, vanity project, because it looks great, but it doesn't actually move the business forward.
Not at all.
So the mission today is to lay out the operational blueprint. We're focusing on that systematic approach, how you isolate the really high leverage opportunities, design rigorous tests that prove what works, and then most importantly, how you operationalize it so the learning just compounds. You're getting the shortcut, basically, to the entire content experimentation playbook. So we have to start where the pain usually begins, right? The raw data.
Yeah.
You look at a report and all you see are symptoms. Traffic is down, conversion rates are all over the place, they're just observations. So when you're sitting there in front of that dashboard, how do you take that symptom and turn it into something you can actually test?
That transition from just a descriptive insight to a, let's call it a predictive hypothesis, that's probably the single most valuable skill a content team can develop.
Okay.
It starts by not testing random ideas. You have to focus on where the return on your effort is going to be highest. We look for 4 specific patterns that really signal a high leverage opportunity.
What are those?
Well, the first, and honestly it's often the most lucrative, is the traffic conversion mismatch.
Ah, okay.
These are pages that get strong, qualified traffic, but the conversion rates are just, well, alarmingly weak. Think about it. A SaaS pricing page gets maybe 15,000 monthly visitors. These are people in the evaluation stage.
Wait, they're ready to buy?
They're ready, but the page only generates 25 demo requests. That's a 0.17% conversion rate. The audience is there, the intent is high, the friction is almost certainly on that page. That's an immediate target.
That makes so much sense. I mean, the hard work of getting them to the door is already done. You just have to fix the latch.
Exactly.
What are the other red flags?
The second is what we call underutilized high-value assets. You have to dig into your attribution data. What pieces of content, case studies, tools, guides are always showing up in winning customer journeys? If your data shows a specific PDF is the last thing people look at before a deal closes, but your team barely promotes it, that's an instant win. Third is looking for specific engagement drop-off points, like a cliff in an email sequence or a certain paragraph in a long article.
Got it.
And finally, topic performance disparities, where one cluster of topics drives actual pipeline and another just generates vague traffic.
So we found our page,
Sure.
the 0.17% converting pricing page. We need a strong hypothesis to fix it. Why is the rigor around framing that hypothesis so critical? Can't we just, try adding a calculator and see what happens?
If you just try something, you haven't learned anything. You've just guessed.
Right.
A strong experiment is built on learning efficiently. A good hypothesis has 3 non-negotiable parts: a specific change, a measurable outcome prediction, and the rationale. And that rationale has to be rooted in data or research.
So a weak one would be what?
A weak hypothesis is something like, we should improve our pricing page. It's useless. The strong example for our problem is, adding an ROI calculator to the pricing page will increase demo requests by 25% because our customer interviews show prospects struggle to quantify the financial impact on their own.
Ah, the because.
The rationale, the because, is the key differentiator. It tells you why you're testing it. And if the test fails, you learn your initial assumption was wrong, not just that the calculator didn't work.
That's the difference between just guessing and informed iteration. So now we've got a list of these strong evidence-based hypotheses, but you can't launch 50 tests tomorrow. We need to filter them.
Exactly. You need a framework. We use the IC or PIE framework for prioritization. It ensures you're always focusing on the efforts that will compound.
So how does that work?
You score each experiment on 3 things: impact, the potential improvement; confidence, how certain you are it will work; and effort, The ease of implementation. We usually score that inversely, so a 5 is easiest.
So you just multiply them.
You multiply them. So for example, a massive project like redesign the entire EMIS template layout might only score a 15. The effort is huge, confidence is low.
Right.
Meanwhile, something like create a comparison guide series with an interactive module might score a 48. Why? Because you have high confidence from attribution data, and it's actually less effort than a full redesign. This just stops resource drain and focuses the team on quick, high-impact wins.
Okay, we've prioritized our list. Before we hit launch on that high-impact test, how do we make sure the design is truly rigorous? It can't be just another shot in the dark. I assume it starts with metrics.
It has to start with metrics, and you have to define them before you start. This prevents, goal drift or cherry-picking good numbers later.
Right.
We organize them into 3 categories. First, the North Star metric. This is the primary business outcome, qualified leads, demo requests, whatever it is.
Okay, the main goal.
The main goal. Second, you have supporting metrics. These give you context on user behavior, scroll depth, time on page, things like that. But the most vital ones, and they're so often forgotten, are the guardrail metrics.
Guardrail metrics, what are those?
These are the measures that ensure your win in the North Star doesn't come at a huge cost somewhere else.
Okay. Give me an example.
Let's say you test a slightly more aggressive pop-up CTA on a blog post. Your North Star qualified leads might go up, great. But if your guardrail metric, say email unsubscribe rate, jumps, you haven't really won.
No, you just traded a short-term win for long-term pain.
Exactly. You've traded lead volume for customer attrition. We saw a team get a 15% lift in click-throughs from some clickbait subject lines, only to lose 8% of their list value. That's a net failure.
That's vital. The guardrail is like the experiment's insurance policy. So once the metrics are locked, how do we pick the right test design? A headline change is different from redoing a whole journey.
You choose the design based on the variables in your traffic. There are really 4 main types. The standard A/B test is for a single variable, 1 headline, 1 button. A multivariate test is when you want to look at multiple things at once, say the headline and the image and the CTA copy, but it needs a much, much larger sample size.
Right.
Now, if you're making a huge strategic change, like a totally new welcome email sequence, you have to use a holdout group. A true, randomly selected segment of your audience stays on the old version, and they become your pure, continuous baseline.
What about teams that just don't have that kind of traffic? I'm thinking of a niche B2B company. A/B testing seems impossible.
It's not impossible, you just have to adapt. For that, you use an iterative changelog. You document your incremental improvements and you track performance over time instead of running parallel versions.
Do you lose the control group?
You do, which makes it less rigorous. But you have to be practical. The key is strict documentation and acknowledging all the external noise competitor actions, seasonality. You use the changelog, but you couple it with some robust analysis later to try and filter out that noise. It's imperfect, but it's way better than doing nothing.
That's a key distinction. Now, the biggest mistake. People drawing conclusions way too early. They check the dashboard after 2 days, see one good sign, and declare victory. What are the non-negotiable rules here for sample size and duration?
You have to stick to your statistical foundation. For us, that's typically 95% confidence and 80% power. Now, for anyone who isn't a statistician, what 80% power means is that you're only accepting a 20% chance of missing a real winner.
Okay, so you're minimizing the chance of a false negative.
Exactly. We need that confidence to avoid making expensive decisions based on just statistical noise.
Is there a rule of thumb?
A practical rule of thumb is you need conversions, not just visitors. You need about 100 to 150 conversions per variation for a big 20% lift. If you're looking for a more subtle 10% lift, you'll need 400 or more per variation.
And how long should a test run?
Always run tests for at least 2 complete weeks. You have to account for those day-of-week variations in behavior. For our 0.5% converting pricing page, with 1,000 visitors a day, we'd probably need about 12 days to reach significance. You have to wait the full 12 days, even if it looks great on day 5.
And to wrap this section up, to ensure real test integrity, so this knowledge doesn't just walk out the door when someone leaves, what's the documentation standard?
Every single test needs an experiment blueprint.
Yeah.
This is non-negotiable. It forces clarity. It has to capture the hypothesis, all 3 types of metrics, the variation details, the calculated sample size, the test duration, and a clear analysis plan. If it's not in the blueprint, the learning can't be scaled.
So what does this all mean for the big picture then? We've run a successful test. We have evidence. How do we go from these isolated projects to a A systematic, continuous improvement machine that delivers that massive compounding ROI.
This is the operational leap. This is where content really transforms into efficiency. And it starts by establishing a routine, a testing cadence that aligns with the speed of your business.
A cadence. I like that.
We suggest 3 complementary rhythms. First, weekly quick wins, simple tactical tests on CTAs, button colors, headlines. You get rapid, low-effort feedback.
Okay.
Then, monthly deep dives. These are for broader hypotheses, on-page layouts, or content formats that need more focus. And critically, quarterly strategic shifts. This is where you use all that accumulated learning to inform the big decisions, your editorial calendar, your budget, your tech stack.
That cadence keeps the engine running. But what about the knowledge itself? How do you formalize it so it doesn't disappear when the person who ran the test moves on?
You absolutely must build and maintain a comprehensive learning repository. This is your single source of truth. It documents every test win or fail, and crucially, its structure has to be useful for everyone, not just marketing.
What goes in it?
The hypothesis, methodology, statistical validity, the key insights, actions taken, and really importantly, suggested follow-up experiments.
So it's a living document.
It has to be. For example, an entry might show email personalization improves, opens by 8%, but decreases click-through rate by 12%. That mixed result leads to the action. Test personalized content in the body next. But even more, the sales team can use that to understand messaging. Product can see what features people are interested in. It shifts learning from a silo to an organizational asset.
And that evidence has to connect directly back to the content strategy. It can't just live in some tool.
It absolutely must guide the editorial calendar and the budget. If your testing reveals that, say, comparison guides with interactive elements generate 3 times the pipeline of traditional white papers, and we saw this with a B2B client, the budget must shift. The reason those guides worked so well wasn't just the comparison, it was the immediate value exchange. The user could input their own data and get a personalized result instantly.
It lowered the barrier to entry.
Massively. That company shifted 40% of their white paper budget to create more of these interactive tools. They moved from intuition to proven ROI. And that all comes from fostering a culture of optimization, where you celebrate the learning from a failed test just as much as a win.
Even with this whole blueprint, challenges are going to come up. One of the most common ones I hear from listeners is low traffic. If you don't have thousands of visitors, do you just have to give up on testing?
No, not at all. You adapt the methodology, but you maintain the rigor. For low traffic, you have to focus your testing exclusively on your highest traffic pages, the homepage, main product pages, top 5 blog posts.
And you have to test bigger changes, right?
You must test bigger changes. This is so crucial. Small, incremental tweaks require massive sample sizes to detect. If you have low traffic, you have to make a more substantial change restructure a whole page, add a significant new element to produce a lift that's big enough to be statistically detectable with your smaller data set.
But that sounds riskier. How do you justify that trade-off?
It's a calculated risk you take because the alternative is just stagnation. And if your audience on your site is just too small for parallel testing, you shift your resources to higher volume channels.
Like what?
We worked with a niche B2B company. They only had 5,000 monthly website visitors. It just wasn't enough. So they focused their entire testing program on their email list, which had 20,000 subscribers. They could get data so much faster in a channel they owned. You have to find where your audience congregates.
And what about stakeholder impatience? We all know the executive who wants results yesterday. How do you handle that pressure when a big test is failing early on and they want to pull the plug?
You manage expectations constantly, and you never, ever share misleading preliminary results. Ever.
So what do you share?
You share progress updates based on statistical milestones. You tell them we're 45% of the way to the required sample size. We need another 8 days for the result to be valid. If it's failing, you emphasize the value of the guardrails, that we're proving this is not the right direction, which saves us from a huge deployment error later.
And you balance it out.
You have to. You balance those long strategic tests with quick win tactical experiments. So you always have some fresh, positive insights to share with leadership.
Okay, so once the basic program is running smoothly, we can get more sophisticated. What are the advanced techniques we should be looking toward?
You move beyond simple A/B tests into a much deeper customer understanding. 2 areas really stand out. First is personalization through experimentation. Stop personalizing based on assumptions about a job title. Run parallel experiments for different genuine audience segments. We saw a medical tech company do this. They found through testing that nurses preferred procedure-based navigation, while hospital admins wanted outcome-based
Oh,
categories.
that's specific.
It led directly to a role-based personalization strategy that was built entirely on evidence, not guesswork.
And the second area.
Content intelligence. This is about using AI and machine learning not just to write content, but to analyze it. You feed the system your highest converting content. The AI analyzes everything: structure, tone, complexity, semantic patterns.
And then what?
It automatically generates specific hypotheses for your underperforming content. Not just make it better, but increase the structural density of your intro paragraphs by 15% to match the top guides. We've seen companies apply these AI-generated hypotheses and get a 35% lift in content-qualified leads. So, to summarize this whole deep dive, the content experimentation playbook really transforms analytics. It goes from being the static reporting function into a dynamic continuous improvement engine.
Mm-hmm.
By systematically turning every insight into a testable hypothesis, and by building that optimization rigor into your weekly work, you create that critical virtuous cycle. Every success and every failure contributes to this rapidly growing, centralized knowledge base.
That is the primary conclusion, isn't it? The most successful content teams, they evolve their approach based on evidence rather than opinion. Because adaptive capability is just essential in a market that's always shifting.
Absolutely.
It's the difference between hoping your content works and knowing predictably that it is driving revenue. So the journey to becoming a truly data-driven content operation, it starts with a single, well-designed experiment. What is the one high-leverage opportunity you will identify today, and what specific rationale-backed change will you test to start moving the needle on ROI? Go start that experiment.